Leka, episode 273. Deep Durbanite, Taravarna, and building boats with Don Solomon. We're going to get there in two shakes of a lamb's tail. Welcome to the Noob Spearo podcast. My name is Shrek, and I get to interview spearfishing experts from all over the planet. Today, it's a legend straight out of South Africa. Don Solomon comes highly regarded, highly recommended. Let me just read out a quick bit on his bio, and then we'll get into some shout-outs. Don Solomon is the president of the SAUFF. It's the South African Underwater Fishing Federation. Isn't that a bit of a mouthful? He competed at last year's Worlds. He regularly spears to 40, even 50 meters of water out around Durban. He's massive into getting the local club and national scene reignited. He's peers with guys like Jaco Bligno and, seriously world-class South African spearos. He's also a Pathos diver. He builds his own boats, and we geek out on a whole bunch of stuff. He's got a really cool YouTube channel. Check it out, Don Solomon, or if you go to his Instagram, Don_Solomon_Pathos_SA. It'll all be linked up in today's show notes. Go to noobspearo.com/Don, D-O-N, noobspearo.com/Don. Everything we chat about today will be linked up in there. But I'll tell you what, I had a real good chat today, and a bit of a thank you to his mate Corry, who sent in a little bit of a bio about him, and so I could understand a bit more about him and how to ask some good questions, hopefully. But honestly, I think we chatted for an hour and a half. I felt like Don and I, he could go for 5 hours. This guy is a treasure trove of knowledge, and I hope you get some enjoyment out of today's episode, particularly the conversation around Taravarna, which is it's a Polynesian word pretty much to describe decompression sickness as it's understood from, as it's understood and how it affects freedivers. Very interesting. It's not talked about enough. My mate Ope on the Sunny Coast was recently had a bit of an experience with it, and she's been talking to me about it as well. And yeah, we sort of scratched the surface on it today, and I hope it's interesting for you because it's something not commonly talked about. So yeah. Hey, before we get there, a couple of quick shout outs. Actually, in particular, I've got a boat ramp rant for Ricky in a second, so we're going to go and have a listen to that. But before that, Adam says, 5 stars. The Whitsunday Sour Cross Spear 2024 trip was a trip of a lifetime. I went away with only 6 months experience freediving and had never fired a shot with a spear gun. The instructors, crew, and everyone who participated were a bunch of legends. Everyone was super helpful, keen to pass on their knowledge and experience. I've learned new skills from catching and filleting fish, how to behave underwater, and made some great new friends. If you get the opportunity, this trip is not to be missed. Shrek from Noob Spearo was an amazing host with great energy for the entire week. And I took Adam out for a dive where he got his first cray and his first coral trout in the same session. And it was so cool to see the energy coming off him. It was well earned. A very cool guy. Hey, let's go to Ricky. This is a cracker boat ramp rant. I reckon there's something to be learned in these rants. Have a listen to Ricky.
Yeah, g'day, Shrek. Ricky here from Ramp Rants with Ricky. Listen, I noticed a couple episodes ago you put out a call out for requesting a few rants here and there. I could probably help you out with a few every now and again. But anyway, I'd like to make a special note to that fella. I think you said his name was Phil that you mentioned. Gets a bit educational at boat ramps with regards to people not turning their lights off while they're reversing their boats in. Mate, couldn't agree with you more. Sounds like a top fella and a really good advocate for educating people on such issues. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I think he has been known to go down and turn a few lights off for the boat owners. And I'm not sure if it's actually true stories or not. Could be fibs, but I think he has been known to release the odd handbrake or two. Anyway, have a good day, Shrek.
Thanks for that, Ricky. Yep, let's turn our headlights off at the boat ramp. We don't need them on. You're going backwards anyway. What do you need your headlights on, especially on full beam? Like, blinding poor old Ricky. And don't make him, if you ever see a guy turning your headlights off at the ramp, it's probably Ricky. Cheers for that. If you guys want to leave a rant, and I think it's a great learning opportunity for everyone, go to noobspearo.com, head up into the menu, give back, scroll down to Noober Stories, and leave me a voice message up to 3 minutes, something that Ray maybe gets on your goat a wee bit, and I would love to hear your rant. Do that for me. Hey, let's get into today's episode with Don Solomon. It's an absolute cracker. Here we go. Live the spearfishing lifestyle with Adreno. Today's major sponsor, the SAUFF Live It and Breathe It. You can shop online or in store. Huge range of equipment, always growing, always changing. They are the world's largest dive store. They are available just about everywhere. They have hassle-free returns. massive range of equipment, price match guarantee, and you can check them out online. You can even use the code NoobSpearo to save $20 on every purchase over 200 at adreno.com.au. Check them out. Boom! Absolutely mint customer service. Specialty spearfishing equipment, elite spear gun performance components, unforgettable reliability. You want to find out where to buy this? Punch in Neptonics.com and shop at the best US spearfishing store, Neptonics.com. Free shipping to the lower 48 when you spend over $199, and you can use the code NOOB10 to save 10%. This is your chance to save dosh. Buy deadly good gear and experience A-grade customer service. Will you shop with the best? Visit Neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to start shooting 35-pound muttons tomorrow. Actual performance may differ from advertisement. Please refer to terms and conditions to see if you're eligible to be a legend like Shrek. This advertisement was not even endorsed by Jerry and the team at Neptonics. Hoorah, and God bless America. A lot of dry training programs are not really designed for spearfishing. That's why I have got together with a bunch of legends to put together a 50-day prep program to get you in decent shape for spearfishing. It's not for everyone. It's for people that want to make the most of a trip, competition, or a charter of a lifetime. Go to noobspearo.com/spearready and have a look at what this 50-day prep program has to offer. There's a private Facebook group. There are weekly workouts that get emailed to you, and they come from experts like Adam Stern, Australian freediving record holder. They come from Jared Rosenberg, expert strength and conditioning coach from Earth and Ocean Fit. They come from Dr. Jaap Verbaas, author of Longer and Deeper, and legends like that. It's 50 days, 100% focused on action. It's a cross-training program designed to put you in the absolute best shape to go spearfishing and make the most of a trip of a lifetime. The program is designed to be performed in 3 different modalities, so no matter where you are with time, availability, and equipment, you will be able to be more spear ready by utilizing this program. Check it out, noobspearo.com/spear ready. G'day guys, special treat today. This guy actually comes hotly requested, Don Solomon. He's a bit of a South African legend, Don. I don't know, you probably don't like being called that, but welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Shrek. Thanks for having me.
Man, you're super experienced, like very highly regarded, and you have a lot now to do with the SAUFF, the South African Underwater Fishing Federation. You're the president, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct. About a year or so ago. It's a bit of an electoral process, but yeah, I jumped in there to try and steer us in a good direction.
Okay. I would love to chat a bit about clubs in general. And if you have that strong club background, I actually think clubs are kind of the backbone of what we do. Some clubs are in decline. Some clubs are growing. It'd be great to talk about what makes a good spearfishing club culture and obviously the governing body, what you guys do on a sort of a national level. And but I also know you're an incredibly deep diver, and that was a journey to start deep diving. And I think you have from what I've heard, a really good understanding of some of the risks, but also some of the rewards as well, because you've shot and taken fish really deep as well. You're also sponsored by Pathos, and some of Pathos's equipment I hold in very high regard. So I'd love to chat a bit about that. It sounds like we've got a few directions to go in today.
Yeah, looking forward to it. So yeah, look, let me start with the club thing, because I'm very passionate about clubs, and I've been spearfishing since I was very young, and so it was something that we did as youngsters. I'm talking 30, 35 years ago. You know, we joined clubs, and the clubs were big and they were strong. This day and age, it's not quite like that in South Africa. There are lots of clubs around, and but every club battles to hang on to membership. And I'm very passionate about trying to retain that membership and get more people involved. So I think for me, I just come from that background where spearfishing clubs are just fantastic communities for learning, for growing. And me personally, I'm a direct benefit of that, you know, joining clubs and learning and growing with the sport. So that's sort of my background, I suppose. It's just something I've grown up very familiar with.
For many in today's world, it seems to be some clubs are very focused on competition, and a lot of people that enter the world of spearfishing these days don't necessarily come at it with a competitive or a joyful competition. They actually see spearfishing as something removed from it. So that draw to the clubs from that point of view is not really there. There also seems to be a bit of shift with regards to people's priorities in terms of time and money. What are some of the broader reasons you think people do or don't choose to join a spearfishing club?
Well, look, you hit the nail on the head there. 100% accurate. People just look at the clubs from, a different perspective. Some guys are into competitions, some not. Some clubs, like you say, are highly focused on competitions, and they also feel that is what the members join for. And my experience with my local club in my area is there's way more hunger for knowledge. By far, it's not even, if we host a competition, we have very poor turnout. But if we have a meeting where I'm going to do a talk on shore diving and understanding currents and rips, guys are traveling far to come and listen. So, yeah, I think, but then it's also, you got to find the people that are willing to stand up and give these conversations. And, there's lots of knowledge within most clubs. It's just a matter of, like, if the committee needs to identify these people and take advantage of their knowledge and put them in the spotlight a little bit and share your knowledge. And I think I'll probably do a bit of that later also with the deep diving thing. So, this is what I really, really enjoy. So, look, I've also got 2 kids that are teenagers going into spearfishing. So it's also a learning process for them that I enjoy watching them grow.
Yeah. How cool is it when you watch other, proficient men and women like give in and teach your kids some of the stuff that, good spearos know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. I enjoy, look, like I said, I'm a beneficiary of learning from other people. So it's the process of spearfishing. Yeah. And look, I think in today's day and age, there's just so much information available. Like, you're doing a really good podcast for the whole world to learn from. 30 years ago, this wasn't available, and we used to just plod on. And that's an interesting story. That, like, my first competition was in 2015.
Oh, wow.
My first national champs. And I've been diving since basically the early 90s, late 80s even.
Wow.
So, and then my learning process from 2015 was absolutely dramatic.
Yeah,
because of the environment I was in.
What is it?
So,
what is it about the environment, and what do you think stops people from being interested in going in competition?
I really don't know, because I love competition.
You love it now. You love it now, but for 25 years you didn't.
Well, I didn't really know it even was a thing. I was so removed from what was going on in organized spearfishing, which is a fault, I suppose, of the national body. But back then, communication wasn't as easy as it is today, with the internet and social media and things. So I think that was the reality of it. I just didn't know it was at that level. It was, I suppose I was also probably not connected to the right spearfishing club at that stage. I was like a very small inland club, so maybe it wasn't quite a priority.
Okay.
So like within our club at the moment, we make it quite clear that there's competitions available, national champs, and people put up their hand or they don't. We don't push either way, or it's the options are there and the communication is there.
So you don't think it's like a negative perception necessarily of competitions? It's more just knowledge that they are there and available, and what's sort of involved in them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Look, again, once I'd done my first competition, I loved it. So I try and give that sort of advice to the guys that are sort of on the fence. They're curious, but not. No, they think they undergunned for the level of the competition, and that will always be the case. You will rock up at a competition, and the top guys have insane fish. It's like, have you even dived in the same ocean? So this is the reality of skill that people develop over years. So I really promote the idea of just give it a crack. Just give it a chance and try it once. If you don't like it, then so be it. We've got a very interesting character in our club that is a very good spearfisherman, but she chooses not to do it. She just doesn't like the pressure of competition. So you don't want to force people. It needs to be fun.
Yeah.
To place in the top 5 at a national champs is not fun. It's like really, really hard work.
Yeah.
But the rest of the guys, it should be fun.
I remember talking to Richard Leonard back in the day, and I really had a high regard for him and his involvement in spearfishing. He ran the In the Zone TV, which was like a really good spearfishing channel back in the day, and he's a very talented guy as well, also very thoughtful, and he was also trying to compete at the highest levels. I think he might have even competed and finished as high as maybe 6th or 7th. It could be higher, I'm not sure. But I haven't seen as many public-facing South African spearos in recent years. Chris Coates and Richard Leonard were obviously two of the more memorable ones, and Barrett Harvey. Those guys are all a bit older now. I think Richard might have moved on a little bit. I'm not sure if he's still spearing. But are there some big sort of public-facing YouTube channels now in South Africa that the rest of the world isn't as aware of?
Look, there is a couple of guys trying. I think, as you're probably well aware, it takes a huge commitment and energy and effort to do it right. So there's a few guys. It's just not quite. South African spearfishing is in a different place, and I think most of the top spearers come from a very older school of thought. It's most of the guys protect their information, and I think you've spoken about the same topics before in some of your podcasts. So
it's hard.
Things are changing.
One of the responses I had when I started the Noob Spearo podcast was like, and from experience, guys that I would invite on the podcast, and some of them were gracious enough to come on, but some guys were sort of like, I don't want to share all our secrets. We don't need more spearos in the ocean. We should have less so that we have more fish for us, And it was kind of an us for and no more mentality. And I had a few responses. One was, if I can get all of your knowledge in a 1-hour interview, then you don't have much knowledge anyway. Because like if I hang out with someone like you for 3 days, Don, I'm sure I would learn things flat out for 3 days. And then the other thing was, if we teach spearos now to do things the right way because of all the experience over the years that you've done it, then some of these guys aren't going to have to make the same mistakes that you've made. And we don't all have to go out there and fill a cooler full of fish every time. The aim might be for one special fish of a particular species. And I don't even think competitions are like filling in esky anymore, you know, like sometimes it is obviously about the amount of species that you've got, but they're within a range, and the possibilities of how many fish that you can shoot on a given competition day are limited. Like, and we're only one person at the end of the day, even if there's 50 people competing, like 50 guys aren't going to shoot 20 fish each, you know, 10 guys might shoot more than 10 fish each. And then the rest of the people are going to be somewhere between 0 and 10, you know, like it's so anyway. I digress. I'm taking over.
No, look, I agree with your assessment 100%. And I'm a very passionate spearfisherman. And I also within my role within the governing, or not governing, but the National Federation is I'm very, very conservation orientated. So I don't like filling coolers full of fish. So, like say, you can teach your skill, and or primarily keep people safe. And I think I picked that a big trend out of your podcast is that safety is number one. And I really like the idea of people going into the ocean, having fun, experiencing this thing, but doing it safely and with some actual chance of shooting a fish and coming out the water safely again. So yeah, I get a lot of pleasure out of transferring some information and people enjoying it. So yeah, I agree with your assessment. Absolutely. I think also spearfishermen sometimes also don't necessarily do themselves any favors. You know, some of the social media photos that guys post and the interactions is not necessarily doing us as a community any good.
There's a few factors with that. Like I see some guys have a response. You know, it takes a lot of patience to teach hostile people in a graceful way about what it is that we do. I more often than not see a troll response, which is, you know, like, well, you didn't like the marlin that I shot. You should have seen the dolphin that I shot yesterday, or, you know, something silly, you know, and similar. I mean, it does take a lot of grace and patience to be gentle with people and teach them about what it is that we do and why we do it. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. With regards to new people in competitions, inviting people, telling them about it and what's involved, I mean, that's a big part of it. What other initiatives do you think could bear fruit with regards to bringing new people to competitions?
Well, like having a lot of people take part in a competition is just healthy competition, in that the level of the competition is raised. And in South Africa, we've got a long history with going to world championships, Euro Africa championships. So we have a legacy of like some really, really good spearfishermen that have put in a lot of effort. So I'd, to lift our level, we need lots more people underneath to raise that bar, because there's guys that don't do competition that are really, really good spearfishermen. And it just takes one exposure and they're hooked. Okay, obviously it's a big commitment, it's a lot of money involved, and you got to travel all around South Africa attending competition. But if the commitment's there, spearfishing's a lifestyle. If you're in, you're in. And if you get that, if that competition bug bites, it just lifts the water level for everybody. And obviously also the knock-on effect of that, I think too, is the whole industry benefits. You've got the retailers see now when you have competition, retail sales leading up to the competition go mad. So this is, it all works together, and you get the buy-in of the retailers. You got huge brands in South Africa like Rob Allen and Freedivers that support all the local competitions, and they at the end of the day absolutely benefit. So again, like I've just got this thing about keeping the spearfishing community as a whole, whether you in a club, whether you're in the national federation, just to keep it healthy and open, if you know what I mean, Zach. So I'm very, that's me. It's just like keeping everybody together and the doors of communication open.
So for you, Don, take us back. How old are you, by the way?
50.
50. So you said you started diving really the late 80s. So that sort of puts you in your late teenage years, if I'm right. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I shot my first fish at 13.
Wow. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, look, I was very, like, I come from a zero spearfishing background. Like, my family never spearfished.
Wow.
But I just, while I was at school, I had a mate that lived on the beach, and that's what he did. So from a very young age, I'm saying like maybe 11, 12 years old, we used to scamper around the rocks catching crayfish. And we used the crayfish to use for bait, for fishing. And, so the process started. And then, yes, the next thing is getting spear guns. And it was quite a journey. And in South Africa in those days, I grew up in Durban, and we had like army base. There was a military base on the beach, and we used to sneak in there. So it was a hell of an adventure for a teenager, so it all just worked, and I was absolutely hooked. My school life was spent highly focused on the beach and spearfishing.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
So what, that first fish you shot, can you remember how it led up to shooting it?
Yeah, so it was a crazy, I remember it very clearly. Again, we had snuck into this army base to go and spearfish, and beautiful day, crystal clean water, and there's these yellowfin kingfish. It's not the kingfish that you guys get. It's like it's like a GT sort of family. And I saw this fish scooting behind a rock, and I shot it. And it was the first fish that I'd ever shot, and I was super chuffed. And I land this thing, I get in my hand, I take the spear out, and I shout to my mate, check what I got, and this thing kicks out of my hand, gone.
Ah.
So that's the very first fish I ever shot.
Wow.
Never made that mistake ever again.
That mistake is super common. Why did tell people, okay, so you shoot a fish, walk us through just for people that are at the very beginning and they're curious, like how do you what is the process for shooting a fish? I know it seems very basic, but for people that are brand new and they're curious about it, what is the correct process, the sequence of events?
Well, I'm like with those pelagic sort of game fish, my first thing is, when it's close enough, I grab it on the tail. They got a nice strong V tail. Once you get a grip on that tail, then you're pretty good. And then I try and get my hand towards the gills. Once you got a pelagic fish in the gills, they're pretty relaxed. They're even big game fish. So the thing is, I'm an absolute fan of switching the fish off as soon as possible. I don't like dealing with fish that are alive. I don't allow live fish on my boat. So either pull the spear right through so that it's now on the string, and I use the spear to put it in the brain and kill it. And then once the fish is dead, then I remove the spear and I put the fish on the boat or on my float.
Do you use a knife to brain a fish normally, or do you like using the spear?
I only use a spear.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, look, so I also come from a commercial diving background where a knife needs to remain sharp and available. And I don't use my knife for anything but an emergency. So it's always literally brand new. So that's my take. I don't use it for gutting fish. I don't use it for filleting fish. I don't use it for braining fish. It's purely an emergency.
So how do you bleed the fish if you brain it with the spear? Do you just pull the gill rakers with your hand?
I gut my fish immediately.
Okay.
So there's probably the gills and everything come, well, not immediately, but within the next 5 or so minutes, I gut my fish. I don't like leaving the guts in for very long.
Wow. That's a different process. It's uncommon. I like it. I like people that do things a little bit different and have different reasons for it. So, I mean, one way around keeping your knife brand new would be possibly to keep a knife in reserve, and then you could still have another knife. How do you gut it? So you get it back to the boat and then you gut it with a knife you have on board, or? Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Sharks are pretty hectic around Durban, and most of South Africa seems to have shark issues. Is the rule getting the shark out of the water pretty much as quickly as possible, or do you use a stringer still?
Yeah, look, with boat diving, it's pretty easy to get a fish on the boat pretty quickly. But yeah, I think so. There's some of the guys that have developed floats that keep fish out of the water now. That's a big advantage where the sharks are like really intense. So around that Durban area, going up north, where it's a little bit more tropical than where I live. I'm about 150 kilometers south of Durban.
Okay.
So we don't get like
PE's further south, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm in Port Shepstone, so yeah, it's close enough to Durban.
Okay.
So we don't get lots of sharks in my area. When we get sharks, they're big and nasty. It's big bull sharks, maybe a couple of great whites every now and again. But in Durban, small reef sharks are rampant. And if you got a fish on a float on a stringer, it's like the guys don't linger too long before they have to start making their way in.
Yeah, wow. I'm just looking at where you are. Did you say you were Port Shepstone?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a flat-looking bit of coastline right down to I don't even know how to pronounce that place. Kerberha. How do you say that?
That's Port Elizabeth. That's PE.
Okay.
It's had a name change. Yeah.
How do you say it?
I don't even want to try.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Look, I think you need to live in the town to be comfortable with saying that with that name. But yeah, I still call it Port Elizabeth, just out of habit, I suppose. But look, Port Elizabeth is must be about 800 kilometers away. As a crow flies, the species of fish down there are totally different. And the great whites are rampant.
Yeehaw! Welcome to Depth Charge Charters. It's not just functional and simple spear guns that you can rely on from Killshot. It's Depth Charge Charters as well, part of the Killshot family. These guys go out of their way to ensure you have a great time on the water. They focus in and around freedive spearfishing, but you can go lobster fishing, line diving on a freediving. You can do freediving classes and lessons, even to up your spearing game with legendary instructors. Check it out at killshotspearguns.com, based out of Isla Morada in the Florida Keys.
Massive thanks to today's sponsor, Dog and Gun Coffee. It's bloody good coffee, ready for adventure. They use specialty grade beans and roasted fresh in Brisbane by a small Aussie team. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10%. Can't get better than that. Go to dogandguncoffee.com.au. Again, hey, I like the Sandbar Dark Roast as well. Check that out at dog and gun coffee. This podcast is brought to you by aqualite.com.au. This is the best solution, bar none, for staying hydrated in the ocean. If you're a Spearo, it's an absolute no-brainer. It's a game changer. If you're doing extended trips and the cramp starts to set in and the old body's telling you, hey, that's enough, just get hydrated and it will save you a whole heap of woe. Get Aqualite at aqualite.com.au. It's scientific rehydration that Spearos know and trust. I know because one works there, and that's why we've set up this discount code for you, 10% off when you use the code NoobSpearo at aqualite.com.au. Check it out. Australian-made hydration products tailored for Spearos and a whole bunch of other people that suffer from dehydration too. But check it out at aqualite.com.au. Use the code NoobSpearo to save 10%. These days, you're doing mostly boat diving?
Yeah, I'd say 90%. I do a little bit of shore diving with my kids. Like my youngest son is 14, so I do go out with him on the odd occasion, especially now in winter. There's some good fish around. So, but yeah, I'm not a big fan of shore diving. It's also just a time thing for me. So, if I've got a little bit of time, I'll go for a quick shore dive if the conditions are good.
But you're a boatman too. Like your technical background is in polymers, I believe, and now you work on boats. Is that right?
Yeah. I manufacture a small boat. Yeah, sort of supporting the industry. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Well, so do you manufacture components or full hulls?
Yeah, full, complete, ready to go. Oh, yeah. It's all fiberglass. And
is that your own company or do you work for someone else?
Yeah. Well, I do it on my own. Basically, I'm hands-on. So it's more of like it's a hobby that sort of got out of control.
Yeah.
So that's where it's at. And I try and I don't do it, flat out. I don't go marketing. If a guy wants a boat, I make one. I do a few a year.
Oh, okay. So you don't have a team; it's just you.
Yeah, myself and one or two other guys. Yeah, depends what's happening.
As I understand it, like there's molds, and then molds is kind of the basis for what you're doing, and then. But fill in my ignorance. Like, did you develop your own molds? Did you buy some? What does that sort of look like?
Yeah, so I bought the hull mold. It was lying in another boat builder's sort of workshop under a mountain of dust, and I knew the mold very, very well. I knew the shape very well. It's got that shape has been in South Africa since basically like the mid-60s.
Okay.
And it's been, used in all sorts of formats before. So I bought this mold for the hull, and then I developed everything else myself.
Okay.
So I just downloaded a user-friendly CAD program off the internet, and I just started going for it. And yeah, it's worked out very well. So I come from a production background. With my chemistry background, I was involved with Toyota manufacturing. So I come from a production background, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. So everything is modular. So there's no winging anything. It's just basically I produce a whole lot of molds, and they get assembled in a very specific way. I keep it simple.
So if you wanted to, you could scale up. If you wanted to, like, get a bit more marketing heavy and do all those other ugly words that you didn't want to talk about.
Yeah. Look, it's I'm so emotionally invested when I manufacture a boat. It's sort of like I'm doing it for myself. So it drains me big time. I don't want to put something out into the market that's going to fail or be scrutinized. So I don't think I'm prepared to let go into like production sort of process.
You sound like every good master craftsman. The inevitable next step in that journey is always sort of farming out or training people to complete different parts of the process, and then like it becomes a lot harder to hire people that have the same attention to detail and all the rest of it that you have yourself. I'm hearing it. What's the brand name of your boats? Have you got a brand name?
I call it a Osprey 420.
Okay. So is it it's a beach launching style fiberglass boat, like a sea ski or similar?
Yeah. It's like a sea ski, a little bit wider. Yeah, I've made a few now.
Wow.
There's actually one on its way to Australia soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a 420, like a lot of guys hear that, like they go, oh, it's a little bit short, like small for like a big offshore range. And I'm imagining it's a wet deck sort of boat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. The thing is, it stood the test of time. That's why I went on it. I went on one of these boats once, many, many years ago, and I just knew it's just like nothing else. There's something unique about the shape, and it was definitely designed way before its time. So yeah, it's a really good boat.
There's a few South African boats, I think, like that. They have that reputation.
Yeah.
A lot of good stuff comes out of South Africa. It's amazing the innovation that such a small country has produced.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I think we have to be able to get this stuff done in-house. To bring anything into the country is very expensive. So yeah. Yeah, we make, like, the boat building industry in South Africa is significant. There's some really good engineering. Yeah, it's really good.
So talk me through this boat. Like, what are the pros and cons of it versus other sort of? I mean, possibly a lot of Spearo boats. Like, every different area of the world has different preferences for different reasons. Walk me through what the benefits are of this Osprey 420.
Essentially, one of the biggest downfalls of it is it's a bit short. And when I say it's a bit short, it's probably 30 centimeters, 40 centimeters too short.
Okay.
And it might sound not much, but it is just that short. So that the advantages are that it's incredibly stable.
Yep.
So there's a lot more boats designs around the world sort of opening up the transom sort of dimension a bit. So making the back of the boat a little wider. So this is exactly how this boat is designed. And you must know this was 60-year-old design, where the back is nice and wide. So when you got a wide, heavy transom, it always takes control of the boat. So there's very little, there's no, broaching doesn't exist. When you come down a wave and the nose of the boat starts taking control of the boat, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, right.
It's incredibly dry in comparison to other small boats. Like when you're going crosswind, you don't get that mountain of water coming onto the boat, from the spray. Yeah, so also because I've had so many boats over the years, I've made particular attention to, like, the layout of the boat, the balance of the boat. The center of gravity needs to be low. Things need to be, access to things. Like I said, I've been doing it for a long time, so I've just tried to throw all those things into a small boat, and I'm really happy with my boat. Obviously, I make the thing and I design it, but it's a really comfortable boat.
One thing I like about a smaller hull is arguably you have less effective range, I guess, and you can't carry as many people, but they're super maneuverable, and they generally can be powered by a much smaller engine so that they're incredibly efficient, which is a great thing, especially when you look at the price of fuel at the Bowser. So what is your recommended outboard size for that, and then what are you seeing people do with them?
Well, the recommended outboard is like a 60 or 70 horsepower, which is like absolutely ideal. The trick is getting the right propeller, and I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years working with quite a few different boats, and obviously my own with understanding propeller choice. Propeller choice has such a massive influence on performance. So yeah, so that's the go-to. The guys, like on my boat with a 70 horsepower Yamaha, the guys are getting about 80 kilometers on a 25-liter can of fuel.
That's good going. That's really good
Yeah.
going. And how many guys diving off it? Is it a 3-man boat?
Yeah. 3-man boat is great.
Yeah. Yep.
And the thing too is like it's with any small boat, it's easy to transport. It's easy to. So most of our launching is off the beach. So it's easy to handle on the beach. We use 4-wheel drives on some beaches, and you don't want to be, after a full day diving, hit the beach and now you're getting stuck and it's digging and it's getting towed out. It's a nightmare. So small boats rule.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
No. Like sometimes with Brisbane, like, we have a 50-kilometer run really before we get to some of the diving off Moreton Island. And so sometimes with a smaller boat, you want something probably a little bit more comfortable for a longer haul. But if your reef systems are, generally sort of 10 to 15 kilometers offshore, like a 420 boat would be much more preferable and much cheaper too. So there's kind of like a time and a place for every boat. Like, I think it's one thing I'm learning.
100%.
And Spearos a lot of Spearos seem to take up boat building as a hobby. It does seem fairly common, but it's a science all of its own. So you come at it with this background in polymers from Toyota manufacturing and some of the system thinking and all of that sort of stuff and the modular idea. With regards to learning the technicalities of a hull design and all of that, like there's dead rise and like you were just talking about, down at the transom end, you like a wider sort of base, and you explained a lot of stuff I didn't even know about. What other sort of things have you learned along the way?
Yeah, look, it's a very complex process that I'm evolving all the time. So one of the things with mold manufacturing is you put in, for example, to lay up the hull of a boat. So you apply your gel coat into the hull, and you apply all these layers of fiberglass. It takes a couple of days. I leave my product in the mold for about 14 to, call it 2 to 3 weeks. Wow. I leave it in the mold so that, because there is a shrinking process and you would like it not to distort too much out of the mold. So I leave it in there and I go do other things while it's doing its thing. The thing is, you only know if your gel coat was done properly once the product comes out the mold. And that gel coat is your finish. Oh, wow. So that for me has been a huge challenge. And in doing that, I've sort of modified the way I do things. So, the go-to now is, you spray, apply gel coat. It takes massive stress out of, and there's very little guessing. So, I've also got a very good relationship with the chemical suppliers. So, I work with them a lot about
quality,
getting the best thing for my situation. And so I've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years now, and I'm still learning every single boat.
Temperature and humidity would seem to play a big part in that. Is Durban's climate good for that? Or do you control for that?
No, the climate's good. Our cold is not too cold. Our warm is getting a bit out of control. But I just sort of, if it's really out of control, I just work around it. If I'm in for a day that's 35 degrees, then I'll do something else. Sort of maybe do smaller projects, instead of, don't commit to a big thing on a roasting hot day. But it has a huge effect. Absolutely.
Well, just expansion and contraction with temperature is crazy. And I'd imagine, especially with polymers and working with stuff in a mold, I can only imagine some of and those variables that you can't control. Like that'd be a worse nightmare for a person that likes, attention to detail and, like the things that you come out of like Toyota with, like lean manufacturing ideas and stuff like that. Like that'd play havoc with you for a little while until you worked out ways to control for it. So.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I've got like my workshop's just full of notes. There's just papers stuck up everywhere. Every single boat is built the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like any variation. If I do a variation, it's properly thought out, and I don't just I don't manufacture. You can see the way I'm discussing this. I don't do it for business.
Yeah.
I get a lot of pleasure out of seeing a finished fiberglass product, as weird as it sounds.
Part of the reason why I'm sort of asking you a lot of questions about it is Spearos have been very, like I've had multiple requests to do a few episodes or at least one big episode on boats for spearfishing. And part of the reason why I'm asking you is because I'm actually aiming to do up a full episode about it. So I might have to get you back on for that, Dom. Where can, just to close out the section though, where can people come and at least have a look at the boats that you make? Is there a place online where they can see photos and learn a bit more about them?
Well, basically on my Instagram, I've got some of the photos, and then I've just started a new Instagram account, Freedive Marine.
Freedive Marine. That's a cool name.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm just having a look now. Freedive Marine, Don Solomon. Okay, it's all one word.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, he's only got like 78 followers because I'm the 78th. So we got to get on. We got to blow that up. Oh, yeah, cool. It looks like you got a lot of gear. And that I can see like fourth photo in the Osprey 420 there. So that's a cool looking little whip. That's a 4-stroke Yami on that, I think you got on there.
Yeah.
And a beautiful little aluminium trailer like that. There's not a lot to that trailer by the looks of it, which would be fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's not aluminium. We do galvanized steel.
Okay.
So it's like a steel channel beam.
Okay.
That we hot dip galvanize. And obviously you probably also see it's like breakneck for our beach operation. Yes. So the trailer sort of folds in half and we can drop the boats off onto the beach.
Jeepers, that's a good looking boat, Don. The more you scroll through the photos, the more the better it looks. And have you got standard recommendations for electronics as well as prop and motor?
Look, I'm a massive Furuno fan. So I've been using it for a long time. Yeah, that's my go-to. When you see a fish on a Furuno, you jump in the water. It's there, absolutely. But it's a complex thing, eh?
Yes.
It's a very complex thing. Like what transducers you use, and the more competition diving you do, the more you realize how complex it actually is.
So do you have a recommended fit out for guys, or do you sell boats that are fully fitted out with all of the stuff?
Well, it's ultimately the customer's call. If they want to go with their own brands, yeah, I can source anything or they provide it to me. But I'm a big fan of, so most of the go-to fish finders now come with a one-size-fits-all sort of transducer.
Yep.
And it might be a side scan, your traditional 2D. It comes in this combo. The thing is, the frequency of your transducer determines, not all the time, but mostly determines the beam angle of your transducer. So the guys at Furuno sort of look at me weirdly, but I like a good old standard 2-frequency transducer. It's a 50 kilohertz and a 200.
Okay.
The 200 beam angle is very narrow, and the 50 is very wide. And traditionally, the 50 is used for the guys doing deeper fishing or diving. I'm talking about below 100 meters. It's for proper deep. And then I use them both all the time.
Okay.
So the wide beam tells me there's fish in my area.
Yep.
But the narrow beam tells me if they're actually under my boat.
Okay.
And if you're doing a 50-meter dive, you can't afford to miss. And in competition, you can't afford to miss. So you need to make sure that you're absolutely on the money. So I can drive up to my waypoint and my hotspot waypoint. I get there and there's no fish, but my wide beam is picking them up somewhere within this diameter. So my particular transducer, it's a 45-degree beam angle. So if I'm fishing or if I'm diving in 20 meters of water, the diameter of the beam is more or less 20 meters.
Yeah.
So the fish are in that area somewhere. And then I drive around. Eventually, I pick them up in my 200. And then I know exactly where they are.
Yeah.
So with these one size fits all, they're normally like a synthetic type chirp transducer. Yeah. They can be anywhere. I don't have that time.
So
to go look.
You've kind of inadvertently taken us right up to where we're going to chat Veterans Vault, which is deep diving. But I think you've touched on something really interesting there, because I go out with a bunch of different people when I go spearfishing, and some people are absolutely freaky with their electronics and their ability to put you right on the spot, and other people are not. And I tell you what, when you're out with the people that are not, it makes you really wish that they had a bit better skill at like putting you on exactly the right spot or exactly the right drift line. But being precise with using your GPS and your sounder, it's not as a common or as well regarded a skill, I think, as many realize. With the guys that dive deep like you, if you're diving down 40 meters, you don't want to be going down 40 meters and then swimming across 15 or 20 meters to get to your spot. So walk me through some tips or some learning, some advice on how guys can get more precise with putting themselves in exactly the right position with their electronics.
Well, in my sort of environment here, firstly, we've got to contend with strong currents. So that's something that we've had to adapt to very quickly. So I think you need to understand your line of drift. Firstly, you need to know exactly what you're looking for in terms of the angle that you need to drift onto your spot. And also you need to be able to time your dive so that you actually hit the bottom on the spot. So I like to try and do I try and do at least one dummy run with the boat first. So I'll locate where the fish are. I'll put like a waypoint where they are. I'll go up current. I'll just check with the boat briefly, and then I'll try and calculate and make that judgment on the drift. So when I'm diving deep, it's hyper accurate, and this is something that I've become quite good at, is being very, very accurate. And it paid off. You know, when I went to the World Champs, accuracy is essential. So you got to. There's like if my line is wrong, I get out the water. I don't even dive.
Yep.
I'd rather do it right. The thing is, it also depends what you're hunting, I suppose. So, my focus is mainly reef fish. You know, something that's in amongst the reef, in a cave, that type of thing. So that's where more of the accuracy comes in. But if you're hunting pelagic fish, or maybe like king mackerel or wahoo or something like that, I suppose you can do more generalized sort of. But it's still a science.
Yeah.
It's absolutely still a science, but
don't have to be as precise, pinpoint precise. You can just be like know where the pressure point is or the front edge where the pelagics are going to be, rather than like this is this specific cave. the entrance is like 1 meter by 2 meters, and you need to be on the front face to actually see what's there. Like, it's a different level of precision.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I go on a boat with a guy that's a pelagic fish specialist, and it's just like, I'm saying, these guys will put you on the money every time. They understand current direction and water temperature. The current changes a couple of degrees, and these guys know where to go. So
yeah, right.
I don't take it for granted. It's absolutely it's a science.
Some of these skills, like, do you think most of us are just too impatient to learn? We just want to go down and shoot a fish instead of like, okay, no, this isn't quite right. I need to adjust here. And then, getting on and off the boat is an exercise in itself. And then sometimes by the time the guys are in the water, if something's not quite right, they just dive anyway because they just want to dive, So it sounds like you've kind of got to be disciplined with it.
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, I think that's where you get the best results. That's where you get those dream fish, 100%. Patience, discipline's a huge thing. If it's not right, don't do it. If you're not feeling good about something, don't do it. And yeah,
cool. We might, if you think of anything else along these topics too, Don, just pull me up and let me know. But talking about great fish, I'm watching a video on your YouTube channel, white kingfish. Do you know the Latin name for this species? Because I went and tried to do a bit of research on it. It looks more like a trevally species, is it? But
yeah. I think it's a Caranex dentex.
Yep. I think your one's so big compared to the ones that when you look up Caranex dentex, like the entries, this fish is so much smaller than the one that you've shot in this video. They almost look like different fish,
That spot there is just absolutely insane.
It looks insane.
It is the most fish intense place I've ever dived in my life, and it's literally on my doorstep. Wow. Undived, unfished. Found it one day just cruising. It's insane.
Who were you diving that spot with when you shot that fish? Because it said you were at, and I don't always talk about how deep people are, because I think sometimes people measure themselves against other people when they don't understand what's gone into being able to do what you're doing. But I think you're at 42 meters or something unbelievable. And your dive buddy comes down when you've shot that fish, and he's running interference for sharks, I'm assuming.
No, look, he's in it to try get a fish.
Okay.
If a shark came in, you would deal with it. Rather get one fish out than none. And that's how we've been diving for years. So, yeah.
Crazy.
We always got each other's back. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that which friend is it in the video? Is that your Corry?
No, that's Jonathan.
Okay.
Jono for short.
You've got a few deep diving buddies then, eh?
Yeah. Look,
wow.
Corry got me into it ultimately with the deep diving. I could always hold my breath, but to get into the depths, like Corry could just do it. Now he just wakes up and he can go and do 35 meters.
Wow.
But he got me thinking deeper, so that's where the seed was planted.
Is he a Spearo deep diver? And by that I mean, did he come at it from the angle of like reverse pack, whereas you have you learned mouthfeel?
Yeah. There's if you're diving beyond 35 meters, there's no other option. Otherwise, if you lose that mouthful, you're done.
I don't understand how you
turn around.
I don't understand how you do mouthful, shoot a fish, and then come up. Like, it's hard enough just doing mouthful.
The strangest thing is, it's just something that it's almost like I just self-taught it out of necessity. And then I started doing more research into it, and yeah, it's a lot easier now. In the beginning, it was an absolute struggle. But
I just used to reverse pack. I reverse packed for years because when you start getting there, you've got no air to equalize, so you just naturally do like a groper call and bring air up. But a mouthful is far more intentional and disciplined approach. But I find a lot of deep spearos just do a reverse pack because they didn't learn how to do it formally, so they've just adapted to it maladaptively, maybe.
Look, the thing is, I can reverse pack until a certain point, but beyond 45 meters, if you're not prepared, it's not going to happen. And that's where everything changes. Beyond 45 meters, everything changes.
Talk to me about the appeal of deep diving. And I know you have an enormous respect for it, and you tell people that it's not something that you do in a day or a week or even a year. It's something that happens over a period of time. But what drew you to it? I think it's just the lure of, firstly, the experience and conquering that challenge, and then also obviously the special fish. So, it's always my priority. If I put my boat on the ocean, it's my absolute priority. If there's like a light current, I'm gone into the deep. So yeah, it's the challenge of everything that we've been talking about. Getting the electronics right, getting the dive right, getting the drift angle right. I just thrive on that. I really enjoy it. And then to shoot a big mussel cracker or a big that white kingfish, to find that place, it's just absolutely insane. So those are the things that really, really tickle my fancy. It reminds me of like a person who's not happy with like mathematics. So they go and find some of the deepest problems known to man, and they set their life on that course. And like it seems like threading a needle in the dark with one hand. You know what I mean? Like when you're diving this very small area of reef for a very specific, type of fish, with current, with all the complexities of diving deep, finding people that are capable of doing it. The electronics, wow, it's like it's incredible.
Yeah, one of the interesting things, and like obviously to do a dive to 50 meters, there's a lot of preparation that goes in. Like I'm talking about your breathe up, relaxation. You can't really wing it. You can't just do a quick dip. And like I've done like drifts that are like 600-700 meters long in quite strong current. So to be accurate over such a long, because the thing is, I've got to jump in the water. That's how I do my preparation. I can't do it on the boat. And so, to get yourself on that spot over that distance it's a huge challenge. And it's frustrating when it's wrong, but when you get it right, it's really cool.
Yeah, because if you got it wrong, and we're talking if you're off by a few degrees and you drop on, the rock, but you're 30 meters off to the side, like the whole dive was wasted and the whole 700 meters of prep. So I understand some of the complexity involved. Hey guys, not sure how you stay hydrated out on the boats on those long days out on the water, but staying hydrated is absolutely critical to good equalization and looking after your body, making sure you're not doing those awkward one-legged kicks to the surface when one leg cramps out on you. Go to aqualite.com.au and get yourself a box of sachets. You just simply add them to water. It's less than $1.28 per serve. It's cheaper and healthier than any other sports drinks on the market. Aqualite will make a difference in your spearfishing. Check it out at aqualite.com.au. Use the code NoobSpearo to save 10% on any order. Check it out. Aqualite, made in Western Australia. I'm remembering with a level of open hostility and resentment the time I walked out into my old house and my housemate was chopping up veggies with one of my filleting knives. Oh! Nowadays, though, good news is Noob Spearo has a knife roll. It's 2 banging Victory knives in Eggington double-sided steel, a 2-sided scaler and fishbone tweezers, and a custom heavy-duty canvas roll made right here in Australia. Check it out at noobspearo.com. Head up into the shop and get yourself a knife pack made by the Noob Spearo for other Spearo legends like you. Check it out at noobspearo.com.
Another massive part of the Killshot Spear Guns family is depth charge charters. They don't just make functional and simple, reliable spear guns. These guys also bring amazing freedive spearfishing charters to the waters around the Florida Keys, particularly around the reefs of Isla Morada. Now, they've got a bunch of captains and legends, licensed freediving instructors, doing line diving, freediving courses, upping your spearfishing, going on spearfishing charters. Check it out at killshotspearguns.com. Email the team at killshotspearguns@gmail.com. But check it out. These guys have got a good thing going in the Florida area. If you are looking to do a freediving course or get out on a spearfishing charter in that part of the world, check it out at killshotspearguns.com and check out Depth Charge Charters.
Talk to me about the adaptation side to diving deep, because there's quite a bit like freediving and spearfishing is fairly easy to certain depths, but then it becomes progressively harder, and you need time physiologically to adapt, to be depth adapted, so you don't have squeezes and or potentially suffer deep blackouts and all those sorts of things, and then but then also the decision making wisdom that, like, because this you can't make poor decisions at that depth. You really need to be on your game. So talk to me about that side of it if you can.
Yeah, look, it's a super big subject.
Yeah.
And yeah, so look, I've been doing it for a long time, and it's been a slow progressive thing, you know. So I didn't just sort of jump into it gung ho and start pushing. You're 100% right. There's a massive adaptation process. So that's why I try and dive deep as often as possible, because when the day is right, you want your body to be physiologically ready. So the squeeze and it's a really weird thing, how your body does adapt, and without a doubt, it's something that I've got to stay absolutely focused on all the time. Otherwise, I can't do it. So, like I mentioned to you before, like diving up to about 45 meters, I can pretty much do like sort of like on the dime. I can jump in and I'll do a couple of dives to 20 meters in the shallows, just to like wake up the chest cavity and things, and then I can go for it. So obviously I take my fitness very seriously. I'm quite big into my cycling, so I try and ride as often as possible, every day if I can. And when I'm on my bike, I really focus on breathing, make sure that my diaphragm is getting used, because essentially when you do deep dive, that's what takes a huge beating. And there's things like blood what's the term for it? Blood shift, yeah. So I try and activate those things on land as often as possible, even if I'm on the boat just cruising around. You'll see the free divers and they do those full exhales and sort of bounce on their diaphragm. I do that on the boat.
So just talk me through the diaphragm. So like I'm imagining, the range of most people's diaphragm is like, it's not as limber as like a person that's depth adapted. And it becomes very uncomfortable when you have empty, or the feeling of an empty chest. How do you become comfortable with that? So you started touching on it, and if there's any danger around these exercises, provide as many caveats or warnings as you need to.
Yeah, look, 100%. As soon as I feel any distress, And funny enough, it normally happens up in the top part of the lung or in the throat. And when I feel the stress in that area, I stop immediately. Because once you push past it, it just affects the rest of the day. And invariably you can't continue with the plan, so you end up going shallower. So that's why I like to do those 20, 25 meter dives first, get comfortable with that, and then go into those deep. So yeah, those are my key indicators. Look, that for me is what stops my dive. That's when I call it. I'm because I've been diving for so long, I'm very comfortable. When I leave the surface, I'm committed to the bottom. My breath hold, I'm 100%. It's almost never I turn around. If I'm not ready, I just don't dive. I'm going to the bottom. I'm not looking for anything in the midwater.
I've heard of this technique, and I'd love for you to clarify. Guys use like a rate yourself relaxation technique. So basically, like they do some, like you can do a body scan, and I would love for you to talk through some of your relaxation techniques and your breathe up, that period. But essentially, like they say, I never leave the surface unless I'm at like a 2. So 10 being completely uncomfortable, 0 being like I'm ready to go to sleep, or I'm dead. I'm that relaxed. And so they have this sort of idea of a scale in their head, and they try and get so relaxed that they get to a number where they consider a minimum for a dive. Do you do something similar?
Yes, but I've never considered it as a scoring sort of system. I just get a feeling of, and I think it's on the scale. I'd probably be down there also at a 2, 3. If 0 is getting ready to go to sleep, I've been damn near actually falling asleep as well. So I think it's just a process. I think it 100% is brought on by the way you breathe. So it's just like those nice full tidal breaths. The guys talk about, the 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out. That time I do that. I don't time it, but whatever, my exhale is always a bit longer. But there's just a feeling I get when I know, right, I'm ready. Where's my spot?
Recently, I heard a guy talking about listening to a Fleetwood Mac song on the surface when he's trying to relax, and he plays the song over because he finds it incredibly relaxing. And I thought that was really interesting. I'm always interested in the different heuristics, the different ways, the processes that people use in order to get into a relaxed state. Do you have any particular exercises? Do you do a body scan or anything like that?
No, I'm just focused on what I'm about to see.
Okay. Well, see, that would stop me from relaxing. If I'm going to go down to 42 meters and shoot a white kingfish, I'm excited. I'm not able to dive.
Yeah. No, look, I think I try and I just try and go blank. And every now and again I'll just grab on a slice of what the reef looks like, what fish I'm hoping to see, and then I'll let it go. And then I just try and be blank. When in South Africa here, diving deep, you also got to be very aware that you're not going to get flippin' breached, So I'm always looking for sharks and things around me while I'm floating in 60 meters of water. When I was in Italy at the World Champs, my eyes were closed. I was totally zoned out.
No sharks.
And no sharks. And I'd probably do 40% or 50% of the dive with my eyes closed and then just open up near the bottom. The thing is, I knew exactly where I was going to land. So I didn't need to, there was none of that There was so much planning involved. My relaxation, my diving was at an absolute another level during that experience. So the environment definitely plays a big role in how you can relax. One of my biggest faults with relaxation is if I'm diving shallow, for example, if I'm doing like a 15-meter dive, I don't do it justice. And I'm thinking, I'm just going to zip down there. And I end up having a quite a bad dive. And if I do that too often, it affects my whole day. So over the last few years, I've sort of slowed myself down a little bit, even for 10-meter dives. If you've got a preparation protocol, just follow it, because I just found that there is that knock-on effect during the day. And in competition, it can be a problem.
Yeah. So were you in the Greece World Championships in 2016? Is that the one you're talking about?
Sardinia, Italy.
Sardinia.
2021, I think.
Where did you end up finishing?
21st.
Wow.
But it was absolutely gut-wrenching. I did 3 hours of diving on day one, and then I got decompression illness.
Taravarna. Well, how do you say it again?
Taravarna.
Walk me through what Taravarna is.
Taravarna is decompression illness. So basically, you got a bubble that comes out of solution in your bloodstream, and it's big enough to block blood flow and or squash nerves, but essentially it's in your blood system. So it's a serious issue, very serious issue.
Where does it form in the similar part of the body when it happens freediving, or can it happen anywhere?
So to sort of backtrack a little bit, it's decompression illness is very well studied and known within scuba diving. And in scuba diving, you have it starts. Well, there's two different classifications. One is they call it like a pain only. So you can get like a rash on your skin. You can get a painful elbow or shoulder or knee. Those are termed mild. They still need attention, but they're not life-threatening yet. The second type is where you have neurological issues. So where it stops blood into your brain, and you can have paralysis, all types of things. So it seems that in free diving, it's always very severe. There's no gray area.
Yeah.
Or there's no pre-warnings. There's no pins and needles. There's no skin rash. I got off lightly. There's no pain in the elbow. I better stop diving. It's always very, very severe. It's such an advanced medical thing, and I've spoken to hyperbaric medical professionals and doctors about it. It's really an unstudied, or not as unstudied, but there's not a lot of clarity on exactly the mechanism here. But it's a real thing.
How many 50-meter Spearos are there on the planet?
Sure. Look, in Europe, there's many,
but it'd still be like probably less than 1,000, maybe, or am I?
Oh yeah, here? Yeah, way less. Yeah,
it's a tiny, tiny fraction of the world's population in an already tiny sport, and so you think about conducting research on you guys, like it would be a very interesting subset of humanity to study, but it's also hard to create a controlled study environment.
Well, okay, so to answer your question, the Italian spearfishing team have done quite a big project with their sports department and their diving doctors. So they've got a better handle on it. Well, they understand it a little bit better. However, and this is a big thing, is I just recently received one of the latest scientific publications from our doctor at our hyperbaric medicine council. And one of the doctors did a study on a group of, what do they call it, like a sea cucumber diver in Southeast Asia. And these guys dive. So there was two groups that they studied. There was a women's group and a men's group. The maximum dive of the women was about 10 to 12 meters. The maximum dive of the men was like 15 to 18 meters. 80% of the men had severe Taravarna.
Wow.
80%. Paralysis.
Wow.
Diving maximum 15 to 18 meters. So this is a really, really important thing for spearfishermen. And the more I've spoken to some spearfishermen in South Africa, the more we're hearing, this happened to me at 15 meters diving the whole day, and this happened to me at 20 meters diving the whole day.
Yeah.
So it's something that people need to be very aware of. One of the big advantages, I think, and this is my own personal take on it, is that spearfishermen invariably have like some sort of time gap between spots. So if you're diving one spot, maybe it's your turn to sit on the boat. Maybe like you guys probably anchor quite a bit in Australia.
Where I am, we drift a lot. It's probably a bit more like South Africa off Brisbane. It's heavy current, often dirty, often deep, probably similar.
So you've got somebody on the boat.
Yeah.
You have turns manning the boat. So that, I think, builds in a rest period. When you're traveling from one spot to another, that builds in rest period. So I think over time, I think that's been as a spearfishing community, I think that's been our saving grace, in that there hasn't been more like severe issues. The thing is, we are obviously getting into territory now when people are diving deeper, that has become a very, very under-considered thing. Like I've had it quite a few times now, and not too severe. Like, well, for some reason, I always get targeted in my vision.
Oh wow!
I lose sight in my one eye, and it always goes to the same place. And I don't know if that's just the way my body is built. But during this process, I've also learned a lot about ensuring that you allow enough time between your dives. But one of the things that I found that has the most weight in keeping you safe is hydration. I can't stress it enough. And I think when I was in Sardinia at the World Champs, I think that was my shortcoming there. Is it was a combination of accumulation of nitrogen in my tissue from 2 months of diving, and also hydration.
Not too many Peronis?
So, no. Yeah, look, and that's another thing I learned while I was in Sardinia speaking to the Italian guys. In the scuba diving fraternity, when the commercial diving fraternity, the common thinking is that you nitrogen clear after 24 hours. That's not the case. The Italians work on 72 hours.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's and I've since spoken to our hyperbaric guys, and they're saying something similar, in that you've got such a range of tissue, and your slow tissue just absorbs and absorbs and absorbs, and it takes days to release. But yeah, if I can give any advice to just spearfishing in general, hydration is absolutely essential.
Like I head out every now and then on these week-long spearfishing charters, and often sort of day one, day two, you haven't been training or diving very often, so you're diving pretty crap. Day three, you're starting to get muscle fatigue, potentially dehydration, because it's hard to stay hydrated when you're doing sustained days diving, as we all know. And then, but then you're also starting, your mammalian dive reflex is starting to kick in pretty good by then, and you're probably starting to dive really well. Do you think that would be sort of one of the danger points, like on a trip like that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're doing more than 3 days of consecutive hard diving like that, you're at such a high risk, really and truly. But again, the style of diving that spearfishing is, where there is, because time is the biggest factor here. Okay, so well, let's say time is factor 1, hydration is factor 2,
okay,
in that order. And so time between dives. So I think that's in your favor when you are doing these long spearfishing trips. Time's in your favor, but definitely on like day 5, 6, 7, yeah, I'd be very aware.
So is it worth
even things?
If you're out on like let's just say you're doing a 10-day liverboard trip, and you've got 8 days, full days of diving in a row. Is it worth taking like a rest day, or having maybe an afternoon off, or is there any particular rehydration protocols that you would follow? Like one of the sponsors of the podcast is Aqualite, and they are a Western Australian made hydration product. And I know because I take it, and it's full of essential salts and magnesium, because water alone doesn't seem to cut it to rehydrate from serious dehydration. Is that, I'd love to hear more about what your rehydration protocol is.
Yeah, 100% agree. I definitely consider, like, halfway through your trip, I would definitely consider like afternoon off, and in that afternoon off, focus on just getting that liquid in you. Yeah, I'm a big fan of hydration solutions. Under the banner of South African Underwater Fishing Federation, we've got some product support from people that are like really in the know.
Okay.
And they sort of offer our members like a really good discount on their products. So I use their stuff flat out.
What's their name, and how do people get hold of it?
It's 32GR. So 32gr.com is the website.
Okay.
So and they essentially, they're professionals in their industry, and I've spoken to the people about how we dive, because one of the things is I can't eat while I'm diving. So the whole day I don't eat. So they've put me onto a product they called Race Pro. It's like a liquid meal that lasts the whole day.
Wow.
And it's you basically sip it like through the day.
Is it a glucose product, or is it a ketone ester or something?
No, it's a glucose. It's like a complex carbohydrate type thing.
Yeah.
With a little bit of protein. And what I also do is like a rehydrate thing. So like you're talking about your essential, like the magnesiums and all those sort of things in a solution. So I basically got a bottle each of those, like a cycling bottle, like a 800 ml.
Yeah.
Of those. And then I've got at least 3 liters of normal water.
Yeah.
And I try and punish that the whole lot by the end of the day. But what I've found too is the day before. So like your day today, while you're running around your office or doing your work, whatever, if you're hydrated or not. And I focus on, if I've had a hectic day, I make sure that like late afternoon, I'll put a whole liter of just normal water in me, If I'm cycling a lot, I'll do the hydration sort of stuff as well. But I've personally done 3 dives and had decompression illness.
Oh, wow.
Just 3 dives. And that was purely hydration. So I'm all in. And another thing about hydration is it allows for good gas exchange. So the oxygen coming out of, going through your capillaries into your blood. So hydration is key, because if you're dehydrated, your blood is thicker. So the gas exchange is poor. The carbon dioxide doesn't leave so well, and the oxygen doesn't come in so well. So,
Don,
yeah,
I honestly reckon I could probably record a 4-hour podcast with you. I am conscious of time. I'd like to ask you a selfish question, because it's something I have problems with. I, for a long, maybe a decade, have taken a proton pump inhibitor, which is essentially a drug that you take to reduce stomach acid production. It stops reflux, basically. But one of the other things it interferes with is vitamin C and iron uptake. So what tends to happen over a long period of time is I become anemic, which, it interferes massively with red blood cell production, like hemoglobin and stuff, which is your primary sort of apparatus for carrying and delivering oxygen around the body. And I will be impacted by that quite severely. Do you have any like real good high grade food for the blood, or any other advice around my particular personal issue that someone else may get some value from?
Yes. So I'm big on the green leafy veggies. I love whole food approach. So as you know, like spinach and those type of things are very high in iron. So depends what sort of deficiency you have. I guess you probably might need to supplement. I don't know, but I'm all in for when I was preparing for world championships. It was like very, very strict. Rice is key for carbohydrate source. I don't do wheat myself personally. I don't do wheat and sugar. Rice. There's green leafy vegetables for iron. Even if you don't have an iron issue, the spinach and those sort of things encourage red blood cell manufacture. So it can only benefit. One of the big things, and this is my own personal take, is what you eat most certainly affects your dive. And like eating, for me personally, like eating red meat before a dive, I cannot. I really struggle. So
protein, like the digestive process of having heavy protein, is like, it's enormously taxing on the body from a caloric point of view. Like the amount of energy required to digest heavy protein is like, there's quite a heavy cost on the body. I personally think that that's why a lot of us don't like to eat when we dive. It's because your body's not using up all the oxygen and energy, just consuming what's in the stomach. It's kind of focused on giving you all the energy that you need for the mammalian dive reflex and all of the other physiological, because there's a cost, I reckon, to diving. There's a physiological cost to it. That's why, when you've had a day out diving, you experience some of the best sleeps I think you have in your life, because you're so fatigued.
Yeah.
I think you'll agree with me when I say not all float lines are created equal, especially when landing a shot in a big, dirty fighting fish that just wants to drown your float. Slow them down with the Old Man Blue heavy-duty float line. It comes with a full brake system. Also included are heavy-duty shark clips on both ends with D-shackles. Don't believe me? See it in action for yourself at Old Man Blue Dive on Instagram, and see hardcore blue water spearos put the Old Man Blue float line to the test on dogtooth tuna, yellowfin tuna, wahoo and sailfish. Included is a shock cord lanyard for keeping it neat and tidy on the boat. Check out the heavy-duty float line at oldmanblue.com.au. That's right, check out the hardest-hitting, heavy-duty, dirty dogtooth tuna mastering float line at oldmanblue.com.au.
Spear Ready is a 50-day training program designed to get you in shape to make the most of your spearfishing. It's a 50-day cross-training program designed to put you in shape and not feel like you don't have any breath hold when you arrive on your trip. If you can go spearfishing during the week during this program, you can even subtract something from the workout. I can guarantee that no other prep program is saying that. Check it out at noobspearo.com/spear ready. There are always frothers training and trying to prepare and get in shape. It's a great way to stay motivated and do it together with our private Facebook group. Check it out again, noobspearo.com/spear ready. Don, like I said, I reckon we could chat for 4 hours easily. I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface on some of your knowledge. So thank you so much for sharing some of your experience with me. I wanted to touch on a couple more things. Your buddy mentioned a time where you guys were diving deep, 45, 50 meters, and a big marlin swam in, and he said, "Must I shoot it?" And then you were like, "No," because you guys, I think, were miles out to sea, and it was maybe not a fish that was on the target list. Is that something you remember?
Yes, very clearly. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of shooting billfish purely because it puts an end to the day. When you're diving on a small boat, where do you put this thing? So, yeah, that's why I said to him, no. And when we're out in the deep, we see quite a few of them.
Yeah.
They're quite attracted to our presence out there.
Don, people are online these days. You're Don Solomon on YouTube. We mentioned your brand new Instagram, which is Freedive Marine. If you just type in Don Solomon, you can tune into that. Also wanted to give you a bit of a chance to chat about Pathos gear, Don, because as I understand it, you have a personal relationship with Giacomo De Mola. Is that how you say his name? And you like his gear. I like some Pathos gear as well. I don't know all of it, but I do like what I have seen. But tell me a little bit about your relationship with Pathos.
Yeah, well, firstly, I'm the South African distributor of the product as well. So that's where our relationship started, probably more than 10 years ago now. When I went to the World Champs, I got to speak to Giacomo, face to face. I also think they were very surprised at the level of the South African spearfishing, that we were, shoulder to shoulder with them out in the deep. And that's when our relationship took the next step, and they offered me a contract for a couple of years.
Yeah, wow.
So, yeah, I'm super grateful for the relationship with them. Yeah, so I really do believe, and I'm not selling equipment, I really do believe that the improved quality of gear that I used helped me advance my level of diving. So when I do a 35-meter constant weight dive, I'm absolutely confident. That is what it's given to me. And once I've started using, so I've been using the product now for a long time, and I really do feel really chuffed about it. And I've got a couple of YouTube videos. Funny enough, I put a picture up on my Instagram of all my guns, and I got a host of questions from all over the world about setup, and it's everybody wants the most out of their little guns, and so I try and answer all these questions. So eventually I did a little YouTube thing about why I think the Pathos guns are really so good. And the hand grip, grip to me is
like
just next level.
I like the molded hand grip. I think Pathos have done really well with it too, and it's still a fairly modular unit, like in terms of, but it just sits beautifully in your hand, and there's right and left-handed too, isn't there? Do they have right and left-handed? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
The line.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the universal, so it's just like a really straightforward, basically left or right. I think the most important thing that people often sort of don't quite consider is when that gun goes in your hand, I do believe that it needs to be in the same place all the time. If you're holding your grip differently, it allows for the gun to be fired in different ways. And I've had this experience. I've been there. So the Pathos grip, your hand's in that same place every single time. It can't go anywhere else. And I think it's the backbone of the success of that gear.
Ladies and gentlemen, Don Solomon, we are going to have to head on out. I've got to be somewhere in a few minutes. But Don, mate, will you come back on the show at some point in the future? I feel like I didn't even scratch the surface on a lot of your stories and background and stuff. You're an incredibly knowledgeable guy, but yeah.
Absolutely. Anytime. Yeah, it's been a blast. Thanks.
So guys, go follow Don Solomon on YouTube and Don Solomon on Instagram, but check it out. It's Freedive Marine if you're typing it in. But if you come to today's show notes, it'll be, if you just come to noobspirit.com/Don, D-O-N, I'll link up anything and everything about what Don's up to over in South Africa. And I hope today's at the start was a bit of encouragement for you about getting involved in your local spearfishing community, wherever you are in the world. It gives us an awesome place to grow and develop as spearos, but also it's a place where we leverage and have a small voice, a seat at the table with governments in terms of leveraging fisheries and fishing opportunities for everyone. So they're always a core part of our community, and so they should be. Don, an absolute pleasure. Thanks for jumping on the podcast with me today.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the opportunity. Really enjoyed it.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the Deep Durbanite Don. An absolute gentleman, like I said at the start of the show, I feel like we just scratched the surface in an hour and a half. I could easily chat with him for 5 hours. Definitely going to have to get him back for a part 2. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation about boat building and all of the other stuff as well. He's a cool guy, very thoughtful, as you can tell. Hey, next week I'm joined by another legend. It's Guy Bruges from the Azores. This guy's pretty cool. He's the thalassophile of the highest caliber. Very nice, funny, humorous, and just, he's just one of those guys with that contagious energy. So come back for that, because the Azores is an amazing spearing destination, and he's a very cool guy who talks very candidly about the pros and cons of spearing there, and loves his food too. So, hey, if you guys love the show and you just want to go that extra mile, love it if you went to patreon.com/noobspiro, sign up there. You can support the show right now on an episode by episode basis. In about November, that's going to change to a monthly flat fee. So at the moment, based on how many episodes come out, is how much you pay per month. You can get involved for as little as $1 an episode. And there are more than 40 legends on there just keeping fuel in the Noob Spiro Outboard. Massive, massive, massive appreciation for those guys. Hey, I'll see you back next week for Guy. All right. Arriving on day 1 of the spearfishing trip of a lifetime and feeling underdone, unfit, and out of breath is incredibly underwhelming. Well, I've got a great solution for you today. Go to noobspiro.com/spear-ready and take part in a 50-day preparation program to get you into shape to make the most of a trip of a lifetime. This is a 50-day journey designed to get you in great shape to make the most of this trip. I consulted a bunch of legends to help me put together this program, including Adam Stern, Australian freediving legend, Jared Rosenberg from Earth and Ocean Fit, and Dr. Jaap Verbaas, author of Longer and Deeper, as well as a bunch of others to help me put together a 50-day program that will get you results. And I know it works. We've put a bunch of groups through this now, and people have seen huge improvements and landed on a charter or a trip and actually been able to tap into some of their best spearfishing fitness. Check it out at noobspiro.com/spear-ready. Jump in a 50-day program to make the most. If you are 2 months out from that trip of a lifetime, let me encourage you, get spear ready. Go to noobspiro.com/spear-ready. Are you US based, looking for freediving, spearfishing gear? Neptonics is the best. Their online website, so easy to use. If you've got any questions, Jerry and the team answer questions via phone, email. Anyway, they've got an easy contact form on the site. These guys are absolute legends, and if they sell it, they believe in it, they back it, they use it themselves. It's tough gear that works. Visit neptonics.com. Use the code NOOB10 to save 10% on any order at neptonics.com. That's right, use the code NOOB10, N-O-O-B 10 on your next order. Save 10% at neptonics.com. Today's Noob Spiro podcast is brought to you in partnership with Adreno. Live it, breathe it with the world's largest dive store. Huge range of equipment, Always growing, always changing. They are the world's largest dive store. They are available just about everywhere. They have hassle-free returns, massive range of equipment, price match guarantee, and you can check them out online. You can even use the code NoobSpearo to save $20 on every purchase over $200 at adreno.com.au. Check them out. Boom!